evening. I am Kim Melnick, School Board Vice Chair, filling in for Chair Rye this evening due to health reasons. At this time, I am resuming the special meeting that began at 5 o'clock, and we will begin with item number 5 on our agenda, public hearing for citizens to express their views on the proposed fiscal year 2022-23 proposed operating budget and the capital improvement program fiscal year 2022-23 through fiscal year 2027-28. We will now begin the public hearing for citizens who signed up with the school board clerk prior to noon today. As a reminder, each speaker has 3 minutes to present and may be given a 30-second warning before time expires. Madam Clerk, please introduce the first speaker.
Thank you, Vice Chair Melnick. Our first speaker will be Kathleen Slindy. Our second speaker had to cancel. Then it will be Dan Chang, and then Virginia Wassenberg.
Good evening, Mrs. Slindy. Welcome.
Am I on? Okay. Good evening, Vice Chair Melnick, school board members, Dr. Spence, and staff. My name is Kathleen Slindy, and I am president of the Virginia Beach Education Association. I'll begin by again thanking all of you for your service to and your support of public education. I also want to express my appreciation to Mrs. Pate and all who've worked with her on this budget. My comments this evening are about the budget. I have stated numerous times my belief that making this the most desirable place to work in Hampton Roads is the best way to solve our staffing problems. Many parts of this budget demonstrate a commitment to this goal. The experience step increase of 0.5% combined with a 4.5% COLA is one of them. Another big positive is the plan to improve the division's health insurance ranking and decreasing the employee's cost. Other positive points include increasing the teacher substitute rate to $115 a day, increasing allowances for advanced degrees, and reclassifying teacher assistants and security assistants to the minimum grade of grade 10 with adjustments for equity and bachelor's degrees. This shows a response to the fact that you've listened to the needs of your employees. The same can be said about adding more ESL teachers and security assistant positions and adjusting and extending contracts to better match the duties of these positions. This acknowledges your attention to your employees' feedback. And there are many other needed positive additions included as well, but 3 minutes goes by rather quickly. So, with this said, in the classroom, teachers must always be reflecting on assessments and planning to meet the needs of all of our students, being careful that no one is slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to think this way too. If we've learned nothing else during COVID's intrusion into our lives, we have learned that we need all VBCPS employees functioning at their best and fully committed to keep our students in school and learning. There are so many positions that are vital to making these days successful for all, including those positions not deemed hard to fill. So as you examine the proposed budget, think of each part of our whole community and ask if there is something more to be done to ensure their commitment to the Virginia Beach Public Schools. Finally, in these uncertain economic times, putting people first is important. This budget shows a commitment to raising employee compensation to a level that enables VB schools to be competitive in our market. We trust that actions in the future, as the economy improves, will continue to elevate Virginia Beach schools, because becoming the division where all employees are paid a living wage so that they do not have to work multiple jobs to enjoy living and working here at the beach will surely make staffing problems a thing of the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Chang.
Our next speaker is Dan Chang.
Hello, Ms. Melnick. I also like to compliment Ms. Fate on her budget proposals, and particularly her proposals on the reversion funds to the City Council. That was very informative. I'm speaking tonight to hold the water along with Mrs. Wassenberg for the public regarding comments on the proposed budget, operating budget, and CIP. I reviewed Superintendent Spence's estimate of needs, and it's a operating budget of $872 million with a total budget of $1.096 billion. Here are my comments, ma'am. In the $52 million reversion funds that's going to be incorporated, are the $55 million of reversion funds going to be incorporated in this budget? I got before this meeting that they are incorporated, but it was very difficult to see where those reversion funds were incorporated. So my other question is, if the they have been included. The CIP projects that have changed because of the reversion fund, will that plan for 22-23 be modified? Also, the CARES Act. School Division received $129 million in CARES Act funding that expires over 3 years from 22 to 24. So have these funds been allocated in the budget, and does that reduce the operating budget any? One question is, as these COVID mandates and requirements are being eliminated, do these funds have to be returned to the federal government? If they have to be returned, what is the plan for these reductions and payback? To agree with the previous speaker, what incentives have been budgeted for the retention of teachers, bus drivers, and custodial staff? With the shortages of teachers, have the teachers been given a salary increase greater than inflation? I guess the last speaker said it comes out to about 8.5%, but inflation is about 8% right now. So also, are there bonuses included in this budget for the teachers to improve the retention of teachers? On inflation, with inflation increasing monthly in trends higher than the last 40 years, has that been
30
factored
seconds.
into this budget? If the planned revenue for this budget is less, how are they going to execute budget lines with less revenue? So my only question at the end is, how is the public going to be informed of answers to my questions and maybe other people's questions following this hearing? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Virginia Wassenberg.
Welcome, Mrs. Wasserberg.
Thank you, Ms. Melnick. Ms. Anderson, this sweetheart is here tonight to help Mr. Chang hold water regarding the budget, okay? My concern is the lack of transparency here. I had to send an email to the board and clerk in effort to know how to preview the budget. That information was not included in the advertisement published in the Virginian Pilot. And the chair replied to my email and directed me to the division website for the budget office. And as she's listening tonight, thank you, Madam Chair. I learned the only information currently available to the public concerning the operating budget is a document titled Superintendent's Estimate of Needs FY 2022-23. So I feel like this board has failed to be transparent to the public concerning the operating budget. The preview process is cumbersome, it's inequitable, and unjust in that it assumes a member of the public has access to the internet, an internet accessible device, knows where to go on the division website, and what link to click to review the information. And I'm wondering why? Why is this? The superintendent has estimated that the division's needs are $1,095,914,066 of public funding for this fiscal year alone. But why does this board support a process that's cumbersome, inequitable, and unjust for the public? I'm one of 2 people that have spoken here tonight that is not a member of the privileged VBEA elite. I'm just a member of the public. The public is not spoon-fed vital budgetary information by those in the division that agree with our politics. So I'm led to believe that this board supports this cumbersome, inequitable, and unjust process so they can keep people like myself and the rest of the public in the dark concerning how and why they want to spend over $1 billion of the public's money. When your practice is for the public to scurry about the division website, clicking links, hoping to land on pertinent information, it looks like you want to keep the public in the dark. So I pray this November gives us a new majority here on this board that will not only amend this inequitable and unjust process, but will adhere to, with vehement respect, to the very fabric of what makes
30
us
seconds.
America, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You can do better with this process, and I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
We'll move on to our online speaker, Vic Nichols. Please unmute.
Welcome, Mrs. Nichols.
Thank you. I have to simply agree with what Virginia said. I'm very disappointed in what it was. And I think the board needs to understand that given concerns regarding not allowing people to speak, things not being very open and very honest, that the way the budget is done, it makes a huge difference as to the trust out there when somebody's asking for the kind of money it is, and to actually think that people are going to really have a good feel for what it's doing. I'm specifically looking to see, as the example that I use, what are we doing for minority students to go ahead and get them up to speed. One of the things that was brought up in the General Assembly was the money that is being spent to get kids up to speed. And then they said, but what we need to do is make sure that it's done in the high schools. There was an article that came out that I forwarded to y'all that indicated African American and Hispanic kids are falling behind. And that really needs to be highlighted big time in things like this, and they're not. Thank you.
Vice Chair Melnick, that was our last public speaker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, I will return to item 4 on the agenda, allowing my colleagues to ask any questions of any of our staff that are here tonight about the superintendent's estimate of needs or the capital improvement program, and also to the viewing public to just to address the speaker's questions. Those will be answered, and you will receive an email with the answers to all of your questions. I could see people writing as you are speaking, and we will have the ability to go back and watch the tape and respond to your questions. Anybody? Any other further questions or comments? Mrs. Manning.
Yeah, so first I want to thank staff for putting the budget document. I did see that it was kind of on a header. I'd asked for that to be done, so thank you so much for that. Something that I've brought up in the past is making sure that the public is aware. Those who don't come to our school board meetings, don't watch our school board meetings because they're busy parents. Do we send out any alerts to the public about our budget meetings, the superintendent's estimate of needs? I guess that might be a Dr. Robertson question. Just to make the public aware so that they can be a part of the process. I know we've already had our public hearing, but we do still have a number of workshops and other meetings where the public could still participate. Is that something that we could do?
I will note for you, Mrs. Manning, that by law, the public hearings require a 10-day notice in a newspaper.
No, yeah.
We still have that out there too.
Yeah, I'm
Every
aware
one
that
of
we
your
do
meetings
that.
has
Yeah,
that.
but nobody looks at public notices in newspapers anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
what
we send out media alerts and for a lot of things. I think sending something out for $1.1 billion of how we're going to spend the public's money would be important.
Yes, ma'am, we agree, and we included it in the February newsletter to our staff and families.
Okay, so that's already gone out.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
May I follow up? I know that when we redid our family life program, we actually put that in the libraries. We put a copy of the program in the libraries, and we allowed families to visit that and to comment. And I'm just wondering, since this is an annual budget, if perhaps we can get a copy in the public libraries for people who may not have access to internet, that they can go down and comb through that. That would be a nice.
Mrs. Miller, there used to be a law that was in the General Assembly. It was changed, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago, that you no longer put hard copies in the libraries because they're available online. You can do it, but that law changed. That's why we used to have it out there. Now
Is it
we're
a law
required
that
to make it
prohibits
online.
us, or can we do that? Can we do
You're-
it, or?
I think we'd have to talk to the libraries about whether they would accept it or where they would put it, because they're going, a lot of their stuff has gone digital.
And for the record, is that information available here in our school administration building for a citizen to come and look at?
Correct. You'll see on the, if you walk outside on the table right outside the room, there is one copy there. If you call it, we've given out copies today.
Okay.
And Mr. Sutton or my paralegal have been giving out copies during the day if people needed them.
Okay, so sometimes sometimes we find that we do a lot and somehow people still don't see it. And so if we're sending out newsletters, we have copies here, it's available on the internet. And as Mrs. Manning noted, not everybody watches our board meetings. So, perhaps we can visit maybe sending that notice out in January and February, and perhaps the chair announcing that in the month of January also, that we are preparing the budget and it will be where and when it will be available.
And I just would also remind everyone that this is just the first of 3 budget hearings. So there's still an opportunity before this gets finalized.
Lanny?
Yeah, I had, I appreciate that suggestion to put it in the libraries as well, if that's doable. But sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think getting that information out there as many ways as we can. Perhaps looking forward to next year, maybe we can send that out as just the budget issue by itself, so it doesn't get buried in a newsletter. I mean, I know we have a lot of information that goes out, but just looking forward to next year, perhaps we could do that. And then something that I had spoken to Mr. Honziker about many times in the past, and we'd had conversations, and that perhaps it could happen, is an online checkbook, where I think the city council does something similar to this, and Mr. Honziker had, started looking into that if it was something that we could partner with them on, and I don't know if we ever got any resolution to that. Ms. Pate, I don't know if you know anything about that, or if we could look into the ability to do that so we have the transparency with the public so they know how the public funds are being spent.
Yeah, I think the city uses something called Socrata, but we don't participate in that. And in our financial system, it's really difficult to pull detail down like that, like you would see in a checkbook. I know we've looked at trying to do some of that, and we have technology working on some detailed reports now. But the way our system is set up, it's really hard to download that and do it. But we'll look into it some more. And try to get you that detail. Our reports right now are pretty summarized, and then you have to actually go into the system and drill down into stuff. And so to export it out is really difficult to put it out there, but we'll look into it some more.
If we could try to find a way to get some more transparency and detail for the public, because when the public looks at this document, they said, okay, this is telling me how you're spending my $1.1 billion. And so I understand their frustration because I don't thoroughly understand it as well. So if we can, not everybody's going to want that detail.
Right.
But I think having it available to the public would be important. So thank you for looking into that.
Sure.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, anybody else? I don't want to say last call, but anybody else?
Yes, Ms. Wellick, I would like to add that for any member of the public who's concerned about how we spend our funds, each year we go through an audit process that is done by an outside agency. And our budget team has received the Gold Star Award basically for our budget process and our accounting processes each year for as long as I can remember. So I'm confident that we're good stewards. I also understand being proactive and sharing information is a good thing if it can be done. And we'll look into that. But we appreciate the opportunity to make a comment.
And for the record, I'm chair of the audit committee, and Mrs. Pate, if you would just come back up to the podium. We received, the audit was no findings, which is the best that it can be, and it came with high praise by the outside auditor, and I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. I mean, annually, we receive an outside audit. We're required to. Internal audit actually audits our schools' activity accounts. They do dig into our system. We give them access so they can do sampling and testing, and they have audit programs that that are allow them to assess the risk and what's happening, and they have materiality levels and those kinds of things. And so they do look at that in very much more detail than you see printed because they have access to our systems. But we got an unqualified opinion, and we've had that many, many years in a row.
Great. And for anyone interested, our next audit committee meeting is March 1st at 1 o'clock. That was changed today, and it went out to the public today, changed from the 24th because our citizen member was unable to attend. We do have 2 closed sessions during that meeting that will happen after the regular portion of that meeting. And we felt as a committee that it was important that all members attend. So that, again, if you'd like to see that audit committee meeting, that's March 1st at 1 o'clock here in School Board Chambers.
Ms. Melican, if I can make one more
Absolutely.
request. It would definitely benefit the staff as board members have questions arise over the next couple of weeks. If you could email those questions to Chairwoman Rye and copy Chair Melnick or Vice Chair Melnick, and then that way, I imagine that some of you are going to have the same questions or similar questions. And so if you could copy the full board, then they'll be aware of the questions that are being asked, and it will help us. And when we come into these hearings, to be prepared to provide some responses to questions that you've already had.
Excellent. That's great. Okay. Seeing nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.